If you've been thinking about starting your podcast but don't know where to begin, don't worry, I got you. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 4 steps you need to take in order to start your podcast. Big shout out to Libsyn for sponsoring today's video, but more on them later. All right, let's talk about the steps you should take to start your podcast. Step 1, pick your niche and name of your podcast. Step 2, record your first episode. Step 3, editing. Step 4, upload the episode. All right, before we get started, you have to know what your show is going to be about and who's it for. Here's how to find your niche. Think about something that you could talk about for hours, something you could just go days and days and days talking about. And ask yourself this question: what problems are you going to be solving with this niche and this show? Right now, me and my friend Kamal are just now about to start a podcast called Part-Time Creators. And what it is a podcast where creators who work full-time, have a full-time job, who are so passionate about content creating, photography, videography, podcast production, anything content creator related, but they don't do it full-time. It's either their side hustle or a passion project. And we started that podcast with that in mind. So our target audience are people who work full-time and who do content creating part-time for clients or themselves. So we have topics and we have a target audience, and we know how to speak to those people because we are those people. So think about that when you're coming up with your podcast. Let's get on to the next step. So now that we've got our topic, our niche, and our target audience, we have to come up with a name that's going to speak to your target audience, that's going to speak to you, something that's catchy. The name that I picked for our podcast is Part-Time Creators because the people that I'm speaking to are people who work full-time and they create part-time. The target audience and the niche is in the name. It just kind of works. Part-Time Creators. It's pretty dope. And maybe your podcast name is just that simple. So maybe you're a loctician and you lock hair. Maybe you can say the Lock Podcast, something like that, something that's in the name. Or there's a particular phrase or a inside joke that's in a particular community that you're a part of. Maybe that could be the name of the podcast. All you have to do is make sure that the podcast name is catchy, is easy to say, and easy to type out online. You do not want your podcast name to be long. Like, don't make your podcast name be long because it'll be really hard for you to have your viewers type it out, remember it. It has to be easy. It has to just be quick and simple. So aside from the niche and the podcast name, you need to come up with the podcast cover art. The podcast cover art is going to be the first thing that people see before they even listen to your podcast. So it's like a YouTube thumbnail. Before you even watch the video, you see the thumbnail to kind of get a general idea of what the video is going to be about. It's the same thing with a podcast cover art. So you can pretty much create your own cover art using Canva, Photoshop, or you can do what many people do: hire somebody. You can hire somebody on Fiverr, or if you have a nephew or niece who's pretty handy and creative, you can have them do the cover art. All right, let's get on to the next step. All right, so let's talk about recording. So audio is obviously the most important part of a podcast because if you can't hear it, it doesn't make any sense, right? So figure out what type of microphone you're going to be using. Are you going to be using a USB microphone or a XLR microphone? So what you have been hearing me on is an XLR microphone. This is the Shure SM7B. This plugs directly into a interface. It cannot work. You can't get this and plug a USB in the back and make it work. Whereas something like this is the Fifine Tank 3. It is a XLR and USB microphone. So I can take the XLR and connect it to an audio interface, the same thing that I'll do with the Shure SM7B right here. But also, as you notice down here, it has a USB-C input. That's going to allow me to connect it to an iPad, a computer, whatever the case is. Once you figure out what type of microphone you're going to be using, it's pretty good practice to wear headphones and do a couple of test-a-roos before you start recording officially. So test your microphones, make sure the levels are good, levels meaning how loud or how low the volume is, and see if the microphones is even connected. I can't tell you how many times I have been ready to go officially for a podcast for myself or for clients. I hit record and I think the microphone's plugged in, but in the software or whatever the case is, something else is being picked up. Like I remember one time I recorded a podcast, and the entire time, instead of my computer picking up the microphone's audio, it was picking up the camera's audio, and it was pretty bad. Things happen. Technology just fails a lot. So make sure you test. Another good thing to do is recording in a room that has stuff in it. Audio kind of would bounce everywhere if the room is empty. It just would feel empty. You don't have to have egg things on the wall or the ceiling. Just start recording. A lot of those things don't even really matter. Just make sure your room is filled with stuff that you actually use. A table, a chair. Maybe if you want to put one or two things on the wall to help with sound treatment, you can, but don't go crazy. Just start your podcast. All right, before we continue, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Libsyn. Libsyn makes it easy to host, distribute, and even monetize your podcast. Whether you're just starting out or already have a podcast, Libsyn makes it easy to publish your podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever. I actually personally moved my podcast, the Gill podcast, to Libsyn, and it was super easy. So if you're ready to launch your podcast, use code GIL at checkout and get your first month free. Thank you, Libsyn, for sponsoring today's video. All right, so let's move on to step number 3, editing. I think most people love or hate editing, and I'm very indifferent. I love editing sometimes. I also hate editing sometimes. The only time I hate editing is when I failed to prepare. And what I mean by that is I didn't plan. I didn't structure the episode. I don't have any idea where the episode is going. I'm just going with the wind. And sometimes that could be good. That could be very fun. But a lot of times it's not fun for the listener, and it's not fun for the person editing the podcast or the video. You have to know what you're saying, when you're going to say it, and how you're going to say it. So it's all about planning. So right now I'm going to show you 2 ways I edit podcast audio using AI. So we're going to be using Adobe's Enhanced Speech tool to clean up the audio. I like to do this after I have removed the mistakes in the audio. Maybe there's some bad wording, some extra wording, or some ums or bad takes. After I remove all the bad stuff, I would upload the good audio to Adobe Enhanced Speech tool. So I'm going to show you how I do that. All right, so we're going to click Enhanced Speech. All I'm going to do is find a file and drag it. So we're just going to drag it there. And after it's finished processing, so this is an audio that I recorded for a client. It just finished processing, and I'm able to listen to the original audio to hear how it sounds.
Because I only crack eggs. I do not crack bags.
So there's a lot of background noise, room noise, AC noise. The environment wasn't treated well. So there's really a lot of places for the audio to bounce. So once I click the enhanced version, I can hear.
Because I only crack eggs. I do not crack bags.
Way more enhanced. It sounds a lot cleaner, and it's just so good. I love the Adobe Enhanced Speech tool because you have some granular controls. Like you can adjust how much editing you want to. Do you want to include the background noise? I love including the background noise, especially if it's a outdoor setting or if you're in an environment where there is expected to be noise. I can't imagine filming something and I'm outdoors and the speech tool removing everything in the background. It just would make the video look weird. If you know what I'm saying? So you can play with it how you want to. This speech enhanced tool is amazing. All right, so we're done with the editing segment. Let's move on to the next one. So segment number 4, the uploading. So we have come up with the name and the niche. We recorded, we have edited, and now it's time to upload. So we're going to go to Libsyn.com and put in the podcast name, upload the cover art, and we're going to put the description for the show. That way people can find it easily. So right here we have our podcast title, the part-time creator. We have our description. You don't have to quit your day job to be a creator. The Part-Time Creator podcast is where we talk about balancing life, family, and creativity while getting better at your craft. From camera talks to mindset tips, each episode gives you something real you can use right away. I think it's pretty simple. And we have our podcast cover. And I love how Libsyn has this other option for a widescreen cover art. I think that's pretty dope. So we have all the information. Another cool thing I like about Libsyn while you're setting up for your podcast is most podcasts, we talk about one thing, but also we have other topics we talk about as well. So for category, we have 2 categories that we can do. First one, I put technology because obviously, we're creators. We love tech. And category 2, I put society, culture, and personal journals. This is a podcast about creators and their journey, family balance, life, friendships, all entrepreneurship. It's almost like a journal. So I figured we could do that, personal journals. Down here, there's a few other things you can add, like YouTube links, other Instagram, Facebook URLs. That's if you want to do that, you can. But I'm going to hit save and everything is good to go. So that's pretty much it. We're set up. We are good to go to start our first episode. And to start our first episode, we're going to go up here and click new and then new episode. And what we'll do is we can drag and drop our audio file. So after we finish recording our podcast, we'll then just drag and drop the podcast and it will be ready to go. So this is how we will set it up. We'll name the podcast episode, we'll name it. We'll come up with a description. We'll see if it's a full episode, bonus episode, or a trailer. Is it what season it is, what episode number, clean or explicit? It's clean. Author name, tags, categories. I think this is pretty dope. And if you want to, I think this is pretty cool because every podcast has a cover art, like for the podcast itself. But now Libsyn allows you to give a dedicated art for each episode. So each episode could be different. I think that's pretty cool. And each episode could have a widescreen episode art. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, once I get all these stuff in there and I'm happy with what I got, I'll just hit publish and we can launch this episode. All right, that's it. You've uploaded your first episode. And this is the end of today's video. This is a 6-part series where I'll be going over step by step everything that you need to know about uploading, recording, editing, filming your podcast. The next video is going to be about equipment and gear. My favorite part of the podcast production is the equipment. So if you're excited for that, leave a comment down below. Let me know what tools and equipment that you're kind of curious about. I'll love to answer it in the video.